Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/Neighbors from Hell for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Quaint option. Our neighbors told us we can't sled ride on community property. This one's listed as a what would you do vent/rant. My son, 4, and I went sled riding on a hill in our neighborhood that's behind a house in a community, but beyond their property line. It's a small forest area with a downhill slope that eventually leads to the sidewalk. We were out for about 5 minutes, going up and down before the husband came out telling us we couldn't sled ride there because it was dangerous. When I responded that we weren't on their property, they said that wasn't the issue, that it was dangerous to sled ride there, as it was close to the road. When we would sled down, we wouldn't end on the sidewalk, and not on the road. The wife then came outside yelling that my son almost went into the road one time, which he just went on the sidewalk. I responded once again that this wasn't their property and stated I'm his mother, and this wasn't their business. They kept going on and my son was getting upset, so we left and do not plan on going back. Today, I drove by and saw they lined up about 10 items of trash to block the hill, which is not on their property. It's various items of small bins, a trash bag, a shopping bag, etc. It's such an eyesore. I'd like to hear other thoughts on if I was in the right here and how others would have handled this. Thanks. Edit. I contacted the HOA and they confirmed it is common property. I told the HOA the situation, same as above. We were sled riding, the neighbors told us we couldn't, and we left. They had nothing to say about the sled riding, but did state they issued a violation to the homeowners for the trash on common property. Edit 2. I would also like to add that this is a tiny hill. Exciting for my 4-year-old, but it would be lame to any older kid. It's not very steep and it's very small. I was with him the whole time, making sure I stopped him at the bottom. Based on some responses, I think people have this idea that this is a gigantic hill that would have propelled him right into the street. So, when I was 4 years old once upon a time visiting my grandparents for Christmas, I decided it'd be fun to get a running start on my sled and did a full sprint, jumped down the hill, and went sliding down. Had too much momentum, went into the road, went across the road, and went right into my neighbor's trash cans and knocked them over. So that's pretty much a core memory for me, and I thought I would share that real quick before I get into some of the kind of the more specifics, just because it's a fond memory of little me being a goober. Now, on to the story. I can understand on a surface level the neighbors being concerned for the children sledding down the hill and potentially going to the road. But that concern should start and end with the mother saying, hey, I've got it under control, I'm making sure he's not going into the road, and we've got this. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a concerned neighbor, but constantly harassing and shouting and essentially stifling the fun of a 4-year-old who's just having a good time sledding is kind of a dick move. And then turning around after they leave and then essentially turning it into your own personal dump to block any future fun from happening, it's just gross behavior. And personally, I find it really goddamn frustrating that the same people and generations that'll say, oh, kids these days are just always on their phones or iPads. Well then, chastise anyone who's just trying to have fun outside. I mean, yeah, they could be doing some dangerous, stupid shit, but they're kids. Let them do dangerous, stupid shit within reason. Let them learn some lessons. Let them have some fun. Assuming, of course, that lesson isn't a bumper of a lifted Ford F-150 going 50 miles an hour down a neighborhood road while they're sledding. But seriously, how come it's become a trend where people will complain, oh, kids these days are always on their devices, and then God forbid they see a kid outside having a little bit of fun and suddenly it's, gotta call the cops on them, chastise the mother, chase the kids off, make sure they can't have fun. You're not allowed to be outside and make noise. The outside's for me and me alone. I don't know, I just don't get it. Abject Comfort, 82.5. Neighbor continues to trespass after being asked not to. What would you do? Vent/rant. My neighbor and I went to high school together, but we're not friends during that time. I thought it would be cool to have a neighbor I know next door, but I was wrong. He's an entitled jerk who thinks it's okay to walk through my yard, drive his lawnmower and dirt bike through my yard whenever he chooses. I live on a corner lot in a subdivision, and he is next to me. I'm a single female in my late 40s, and he's made several comments to me about how I must be rolling in it or have family money to afford my house. He's also asked multiple times if I even work, which I work from home. I park my car in the garage so he has no idea when I'm home and when I'm not. He works for a company that allows him to drive a company-provided truck during the day. For some reason, he refuses to park in front of his own house or anywhere near it. All the houses in this neighborhood have Ring doorbell cameras, so I suspect he doesn't want it shown on camera that he came home during the day. Before all the houses were built, he used to park on empty lots behind his house to come through the backyard, but now he parks on my side of the street, right next to my driveway, and walks through my yard each time. My dog goes insane every time he does it. Since I work from home, this is disruptive if I'm in a meeting. I have asked him, for this reason, several times to not walk through my yard. He continues to do so. Our HOA is not fully set up yet since we are a new neighborhood, but I have complained several times to the builder. I have walked out and confronted him several times during the incidents and calmly asked him to stop. Today, he did it again and I'm sick of it. I wasn't able to catch him, but walked outside right after he got to his truck. He saw me standing in the yard giving him the look and drove off. What can I do here? I don't want to cause more problems, again, single female, but I'm sick of him taking advantage of me and thinking it's okay for him to walk through my property. Edit, I'm putting a tall fence in the backyard this spring. The front yard I considered a shorter, more decorative fence just on the side of the property where they live. I have multiple cameras and have set them to say, "You are currently being recorded," when a person is detected. This has not deterred him whatsoever. Truth being, the guy probably thinks that because he knows you from before you had the house in high school, that he gets to just simply walk all over you and do whatever he wants, because you wouldn't do anything to harm an old acquaintance, would you? You wouldn't call the cops on someone that you've known for this long, would you? And because you probably haven't done anything and who knows how long he's been doing this, he probably just doesn't take anything you say or do in retort seriously. He probably just thinks that he'll always be able to continue doing this and getting away with what my guess would be coming home on company time, which explains why he's doing what he's doing. OP's in a difficult situation here because, for starters, they're a woman and they're dealing with this, so they don't want to cause a scene, they don't want to create more drama than there needs to be, but at the same time, what's the best way to stop someone who's clearly just walking all over you, disrupting your peace and disrupting your quality of life, and despite all the times that you've asked them, "Hey, don't walk through my grass when you're doing this," they continue to do so. What's the best way to handle this? Well, you have two approaches. You could start with motion-activated sprinklers, but that might honestly cause more of a problem than it's worth, but all it takes is once. The next one, which is certainly going to be the worst and will cause the most problems, but will definitely be a permanent solution, is to get law enforcement involved. Go for a restraining or a civil protection order. Have all your camera footage, be prepared and show them what he's doing. Put up no trespassing signs to make sure that you have enough and ample evidence to ensure that you do not want him on your lawn. You have told him numerous times that you do not want him on your lawn, and he continues doing this, and then that should be enough for you to be able to shut it down permanently. But that is going to cause a lot of headaches and is going to stir the pot in a direction that you probably don't want it to be done. But if you're willing to bite that bullet, that is a surefire solution to nip this in the bud. But I'm going to flip this around and ask you guys how you guys would approach this. How would you approach a neighbor constantly trespassing on your property despite numerous times asking them politely to knock it the hell off? What would your approach be? Would you just immediately get law enforcement involved, set up booby traps and motion-activated sprinklers? Or do you have something else in mind that's a bit out of the purview of what we've discussed here? Please, let me know in the comments. Thoughtful Fire Bouquet. Neighbor threatened to kill my cat. What would you do? Vent/rant. Last week, my cat went missing. My parents, little sister, and I were searching for her, but we couldn't find her. My sister was very upset and thought the worst happened. Luckily, the cat showed up again 2 days ago, and she was very hungry and jittery. That same evening, a neighbor from down the street came pounding on our front door. My dad answered the door, and right away, the neighbor started screaming. Apparently, the neighbors accidentally locked our cat in their shed. Since she'd been there for a couple days, she had pissed all over their brand new lounge set cushions that they bought in preparation for the summer. The guy started saying that if we don't put down our cat, that he would, and he would poison our cat. My dad apologized and offered to reimburse them for the cost of the cushions, and the neighbor immediately stated some ridiculous price. My dad said he would pay it, but only if they had a receipt or some other proof of the price. The neighbor angrily stomped away, and it turned out that those brand new lounge set cushions were bought from Marketplace. My dad still offered to pay the costs, but the neighbor didn't respond to that. Yesterday, the daughter, who's like 11 years old I think, showed up at the door and said we need to kill our cat because she, the cat, was a disgusting animal. These aren't the first problems we've had with these neighbors and probably won't be the last. Later edit. Hello everyone, I did not expect to get this many comments. I've not yet read all of them, but I wanted to clarify some things. 1. We've never had any issues with our cat. It only started once these neighbors recently moved in. 2. These neighbors are causing issues all around, in my opinion. 3. My cat is an outdoor cat. We deliberately wanted an outdoor cat. 4. I live in Europe, the Netherlands. There are cats everywhere on the streets. I'm pretty sure there are no laws that say cats should be kept indoors. 5. For the commenters that make it look like I don't think that the neighbors are allowed to get mad, they are. But they lied about the cushions and tried to get my dad to pay some ridiculous price, and after that, he threatened my cat. That sounds insane to me. This is my biggest issue. For the commenters that said that because I wasn't responding to comments that I wasn't taking their advice, I'm a student who's drowning in assignments and deadlines and a job. Unlike what older people say about my generation, I'm not glued to my phone. I don't have time for that. 7. My parents and I are talking to our vet to see if and how we can make our cat an indoor cat. 8. She wears a collar with a little bell to make hunting difficult for her, and she has a chip. No update on the neighbor yet. Let me know if you want further updates. My parents haven't decided what to do on that front yet. Please let me know if you want to know anything else. I'll try to respond to comments sooner. Later edit 2. Honest questions. Do pet cats not roam freely where you're from? I'm honestly confused because where I live, pet cats just wander around outside. I literally can't walk through a single street without seeing a collared cat outside. So for the final point, in the US, it is common for there to be outdoor cats, but not nearly as common as what was just described. It's becoming more and more taboo to have an outdoor cat because they're seen as menaces to the outdoor wildlife and ecosystem. So indoor collared cats are more favorable, and personally I definitely side with that because for me, my biggest fear is having an outdoor cat and they just don't come home one day. I feel like I would be able to keep an indoor cat a lot safer and I wouldn't stress nearly as much about that. I do think that OP trying to take the steps to make their cat from being an outdoor cat to an indoor cat, at least for the time being, is probably the best option they have. It does sound like there's a massive cultural difference between what we have here in the States and what the Netherlands has when it comes to their cats and the outdoor society that they've kind of built with them. So I'm not gonna harp too much on the indoor-outdoor cat discussion, but I do think that at least temporarily making them an indoor cat to keep them safe from the psychopaths down the street is probably your best option. Also, on a side note, I don't think replacing the cushions is your responsibility if they locked your cat in their shed and the cat just did cat things in there. Like, in my opinion, that's on them. I also don't really know how the legal system or laws work within the Netherlands because I don't know what options they really have to, combat this or what they can do. So if you're from the Netherlands, feel free to give some advice and comments on it because, honestly, I definitely can't. I'd be curious to know what options they actually have to deal with neighbors that are threatening them like this because, in my eyes, a pet is a member of the family, and someone who's threatening to poison a member of my family is threatening my family. So I don't know what options or ways they could fight back against this legally they have. See, in America, you can just threaten your neighbor with your unregistered firearm and that'll do the trick. That's a joke. Don't take that seriously in the slightest. That is just a deadpan joke. Please do not listen to me at all with that specific comment. Pink clouds, orange sky. Neighbors doing what they falsely accused me of. Petty and legal revenge ideas wanted. What would you do? Vent/rant. When I moved into my home, neighbor 1, their property is behind my house, told the other neighbors my security cameras were recording her family. This set me up for being viewed suspiciously by the other neighbors from the start. I told her my cameras monitor my property, not my neighbors, and they're not pointed at her house. She was not convinced. While sitting in my garden watching the birds and squirrels in my side of the garden that borders neighbor 1's side garden, just with my eyes, no binoculars or anything, I have a bird bath and feeders, I heard neighbor 1 yell that I was just fake bird watching, but really watching her and her family. Boy, Now, unfortunately, neighbor 2's wife had early onset dementia. She's since passed away, and in a perfect delusional storm, told neighbor 1 I was trying to get with her husband, and that I visited him when she wasn't home. Never happened. Not interested in a sick woman's or any woman's husband. Neighbor 1 and other neighbors all believe this to be true, and then neighbor 3 scornfully remarked to me that I should be happy now that neighbor 2's wife is dead. Fast forward to just after Christmas when I replaced the camera overlooking my driveway with one that has a light when motion activated for better security. It only covers and lights my driveway. And while neighbor 2's side yard faces my driveway from across the street, he has a wall of hedges between his house and the street that lies between our properties. So, of course, the neighbors have concluded that I placed the camera there to watch neighbor 2. Well, the neighbors now appear to have done what they have accused me of all these years. Placed a camera on neighbor 2's property, I suspect it's hidden in the hedges, to be alerted when I'm on my porch or in my front garden. Hear me out. Neighbor 1 lives behind me and would not be able to see if I'm in my front garden from their property. While gardening, I noticed neighbor 1's family members cruising by several times, one by one. One household member walks by, wait 3 minutes, a different household member walks by. Repeat for 2 hours. They attempted to make eye contact and looked smugly pleased when I looked up at them, like they wanted me to know they were there. Weird, but whatevs. That evening, I sat on my porch with a book, and same thing. This time I counted. They came by 6 times in an hour, smugly laughing or smiling every time I looked up. That night, I wanted to see if they would appear again after dark. So I sat on my porch playing on my phone for 45 minutes. 4 times in 45 minutes. It's a creepy parade. I decided to test it. Next day, I kept the camera running from my front window trained on my front garden, and you can see the street in the front of my house. I did a quick repair of a drain pipe, 3 minutes, and went back inside. Within 4 minutes of the start of my repair, neighbor 1's household members showed up, and they are seen loitering a bit at my front garden as if looking for me. But I had left before they arrived. I kept the camera running and there were no more visits. Until I took a work call on my front porch. I made sure to never look up at anyone and to focus entirely on my call, checking the video footage later. Like clockwork. Here comes neighbor 1, followed by a different member of her family coming in the other direction. And then neighbor 2 drives his car slowly in front of my house, pausing at my driveway, and you can see on my footage him craning his neck to look at me while I ignore from my porch focused on my call. One of neighbor 1's household members looks visibly disappointed that she can't get my attention. While it is legal to have a security camera that incidentally captures the neighbor's front-facing property, it is illegal to surveil your neighbor. Proving it is another matter entirely. I'd like to get petty, legal, and fun for me. Revenge instead, which is completely out of character for me, so I could use some ideas. The only thing that I can think to do is to make it appear as if I'm going to spend a lot more time in my front garden and then not, triggering them to start their parade only to get frustrated when they see I'm not there. Other ideas? Legal only, no harm done. I'd like it to be fun for me and I don't want to evoke retaliatory behavior. Needs to appear that I'm just living my life while they get thwarted. Thanks for the ideas! So this is definitely a pretty fucking weird scenario. My first thought would be just to test out the theory to make sure it's definitely 100% not a coincidence. Go outside, do something for 3 minutes, go inside for 10 minutes. Watch to see if anyone shows up. After the 10 minutes, go outside for 3 minutes, go back in for 12. Kind of scatter and disorient the time so that way it's clear that it's not on some kind of clockwork schedule, and just see if every time you come out, if someone does actually end up in front of your home. Get like actual documented evidence and proof of this, just for the sake to prove that you're not going crazy, because this definitely does feel like one of those weird, like, gang stalking YouTube videos where someone's just filming people around them and losing their fucking mind. So, while I'm not saying that OP is crazy, I'm just saying getting evidence to prove that you're not crazy would definitely be a lot of helpful just for you and your mental sanity's sake. Because this sounds like a fucking nightmare, I'm not gonna lie. If this is as accurate to what OP is reporting it to be, this is just weird. So now I turn it to you guys. What kind of fun and fucked up legal ways would you get revenge on these people and just mess with them? Feel free to post in the comments, or even as per usual, go to the links in the description and go to the post itself and leave a nice helpful comment for them. I'd love to see what kind of nonsense y'all can come up with. Competitive Alps 871. Elderly neighbor lady banging on my door, then trying to force her way into my house. She's done something similar before. What would you do? Vent/rant. Long, so please bear with me. My neighborhood brims with people who think they are entitled and know no boundaries. Several years ago, I moved back to my parents' old house to take care of them. Now that they've both passed, I still live here. It's a decent house, in a nice area of town, other than some kooky neighbors. But aren't kooky neighbors kind of everywhere these days? Well, anyway. I call what I basically inherited as a friend of my dad's. He used to talk to her, and her husband frequently. Her husband passed away a couple years ago. I will call her Doris. Doris and I have had this discussion in the past. If I need to pop over to her house, I always call first, which I can count on one hand in the last 3 years how many times I went to her house. That's how it's always been. I always call her first. But a couple years ago, she brought up to call first, which I thought was weird because I do call first before I pop over. I told her I would appreciate the gesture, and she agreed. However, the other day, due to health issues, I was in the bathroom. It was 10 a.m. Someone was fiercely pounding on my front door. Not just knocking, fiercely pounding. At first, I almost thought somebody was trying to break in. The dog was going crazy, of course. About 15 to 20 seconds later, more furious banging on my front door. I was trying to get myself situated out of the bathroom, and again, not even 15 to 20 seconds later, furious banging for the third time on my front door. At this point, I was in my living room, and the banging on my front door, it's a screen door that was locked, was so strong I could see the wooden door vibrating. I had ordered DoorDash, and for some reason the app was not working, so I couldn't track the delivery, so I thought perhaps it was DoorDash. I tried to always be polite to DoorDash because I'm so grateful for them, but I was thinking, if this is a DoorDash driver, I'm really gonna let them know they're out of line. I mean, there was some snow on the ground, so I figured they were worried that the food would get cold, but anyway, I opened the wooden door and I see Doris standing there, all bundled up. At first, I was still afraid. She was so bundled up, I couldn't even tell if she was a man or a woman. I had told her the day before that I got a Christmas card of hers by mistake in my mailbox, so she walked over to get the Christmas card from me. Mind you, I had told her that I would drop off the Christmas card the following day, calling her first. But Doris cannot wait for this Christmas card. I cannot believe it. Incidentally, DoorDash had arrived at the same time. The poor DoorDash lady was standing behind Doris. At first, I thought Doris was with the DoorDash lady. Once I realized the DoorDash lady was also there. But nope, it was just Doris banging furiously on my door. What further set me off, I handed the card to Doris. It happened to be in a little bucket that I keep by my front door. Doris proceeded to try to open my screen door, nearly letting my dog loose. I quickly pulled the screen door closed, careful to not let the dog out. Again, Doris tries to forcefully open my screen door. Like, what the fuck, lady? I thought. I finally told her, hey, I don't want to let the dog get out. Then it registered with her that the DoorDash lady was behind her. I felt so bad for the DoorDash lady. She probably thought we were all nuts. I did text the DoorDash lady, apologized for the episode, and even tipped her an extra $3. But I was quite upset with Doris. She could have called first, but she didn't. We always say to each other to call first, not to just pop over. And I can't believe she ventured out on such a horrible weather day for a Christmas card misdelivered to my mailbox. For what it's worth, she's 82. But this is not the first time Doris did this. She's done this at least once, probably twice before. I didn't know how to stress to her to call first. I mean, we've gone this route and she still ignores it. I even had a sign on the door at one time and she ignored that. If I don't answer the door, she just pounds even more furiously, further upsetting the dog. Any advice? I don't want to tick her off, which is easily done because I have ticked off the neighbor to my right side because she constantly was burning garbage. Then we put up a fence because of the neighbor on the left side. So I'm running out of neighbors in case of an emergency, and I don't want to tick her off because she can be quite vengeful. Suffice to say, it's better to be on her good side than her bad side. It sounds like Doris might be dealing with early onset dementia, or her age is just getting to her. That would be my first guess. If she's 82 and exhibiting this behavior, that would definitely be my first assumption on things, because it's unfortunately pretty common at that age. It might be worth seeing if you can get into contact with any of Doris's next of kin and let them know that there are some early signs of it. Doesn't sound like it's reached a tipping point yet to where it's destructive and bad, but this shit can sneak up pretty quick, and it can definitely become pretty sad pretty quick. And, yeah, I don't know. What would y'all say in this situation? Because I don't think Doris knows that she's, like, being disrespectful. I know that sounds almost infantilizing, but I tend to lean more towards that her age is just getting to her, and it's causing these kind of gaffes and missteps, and I wouldn't know what to do in a situation like this, so I'm gonna be honest. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.